Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Ladies, understand something. The top end of a woman's weight is 145 pounds. Okay. My mother's 5'9" and she was 145 pounds until she was 50. That's the top end of your weight because there should be about a 40-pound difference between you and men.
Basically, if the guy is rich, what ends up happening is the lawyer contacts the person and be like, hey, you know, your name gonna be all in the paper, so you might as well just settle out of court.
I can recognize talent. Even if I don't agree with the politics, a lot of the politics that was underlying in the show and some of the sentiments he was trying to share, I recognize artistry when an artist is present.
Yes, this is the definition of absolutely cooked. We'll never go back and take a look at her bad decision and take accountability for any of that.
Because there is powerful people in the industry, somehow there is a different law that applies to them. And I agree with that assessment.
What's going on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, IG? How y'all feeling, man? Peace, blessings, glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. Happy Tuesday. I hope all is well. I hope your week has started off the way that you would prefer it to. We got a good show, a very interesting one. I got Jason in the building. I got Sydney in the building. I even got a special guest in the building joining the panel this evening. This is, I don't know. Some of you are familiar with this story, some of you aren't. But we gotta talk about it. I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves. But before I do that, shout out to my writers, poets, content creators. You know, I get my flowers out where they're due. Love my poetry community. Y'all want to stay in contact, everything down at the bottom will take you directly to my channels. With all of that being said, let me go ahead and bring up the crew. Do me a solid, show some love. If you have any questions, comments, any feedback, anything, pull up. We more than ready to answer any questions. Let's get it. Yo. What's going on? What's going on?
What's up, man?
Peace and blessings.
Yeah. This is my very first time ever doing anything like this, except for, shit. 45 years ago, I did a commercial, and A little after that, I was an extra in a movie, but nothing. I've never been one-to-one like this. My first time. You're cracking me.
Hey, it's all good, bro. I appreciate you stepping out of your comfort zone to do this with us, you know. If you want to introduce yourself to the people, just to give them a little insight on who you are, how they can reach out to you if you know they want to stay in contact.
Uh, yeah, my name's Mike Raven. That's not my real name because I had a real mother with a different name. But then my adopted parents named me Mike Raven. And I hate my name. But anyways, I don't know if you want to know. I mean, I was born in a cool neighborhood. I was raised by or in a nice place, but uh, I guess I was a troublemaker, bro. I was one of the worst. They had an island, off the coast of Washington, the San Juan Islands, and they would send the worst kids of the U.S. there. They would send them there. The state would take over. They just took me, and I think there were room for 28, but we never had more than like 20. Don't know why. But so I was a big ass troublemaker. But I got along, man. I was a carpenter. My dad, I learned from him. He, me and him, we talk about construction. We know everything. Guys was so like he was an idiot, but big ass narcissist, man. He he'd really have something to say about me doing that. But anyway, uh, yeah. So I've been a carpenter for work. I love working with my hands. I make gemstone jewelry, thousands of my work back here. That's my man cave. I wanted to get away from shit. I've been to prison. I've done 7 years. Uh, I just want to get away from a lot of shit. After I got out, I got married. I wanted shit right. Ooh, man, I met her daughter. Fell in love with her instantly, man. Just, man, how perfect can you get, right? Get kind of really nice, hot Colombian, you know? And then all of a sudden you find out a 3-year-old daughter. I never forget the look on her face. Look like, I'd kill you if you touch my mama. I love this girl right now. So I don't know if I'm going too deep, but I'm just, telling you about me. But uh, so my life, I can tell you short, but from when the time I was 10, I found out I was adopted. My sister told me. I didn't hear anybody else. I was out, right? So I went on finding all those. I don't remember hardly shit before I was for that day.
Make sure to put yourself on mute.
And what?
You good?
Oh, okay.
No, you good. You good, bro.
Yeah,
That was
tell me.
that was that was that was good. That was good, bro. I don't want you to go too far into like your
Thank,
past, nothing like that. I just wanted you to kind of just get your feet wet and introduce yourself to the people.
I
Um,
can self right now, right? No problem.
No, you good. Jason, Sydney, Carol, what's going on?
Hello, hello.
No, nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm gonna let I'm basically like a fixture here, so I'm gonna let Carol introduce herself because this is the first time seeing her here. I'd love to get to know more about her.
Yeah, I want to know all of you. I
Okay.
wish that my laptop. Look at my laptop, man. Look at the keyboard. Do this shit. I'm a old school. I'm stuck in a cave, man. Really.
Okay. So I don't know. Mm. Sydney and I are in the same house, so I don't know. I gotta change rooms.
It's the other one that I see keep on ducking in and out of when she's on the screen, coming in and out dealing with the kids.
You talking to me?
Carol.
No.
But
Getting a
Sydney and
sneak
I we're in the same house.
Dad,
I'm visiting, so I was echoing. So now I'm outside.
Man, I gotta work.
Ooh, that is not good. Okay.
Hey Mike, would you mind
What happened?
muting yourself?
There you
We're trying to actually also have other people talk as well.
I think I'm gonna end up being a shadow. Okay. So I guess to tell you about me, Sydney's actually my daughter-in-law, married to my son. I I am a I don't even know what to call. I think I call myself a student of life, a person who's constantly looking to create a better version of myself, while giving myself grace to make the mistakes and learn the lessons. I have a background in psychology, degree in psychology. I didn't actually work in that field. I used it more in sales, worked in the healthcare industry, retired about a year and a half ago to pursue some other things. I'm at that point in my life, and I think we all get there when we get there, but I'm at that point in my life that my days that are in front of me are certainly going to be less than the days that are behind me. So I would like to make the most of them and leave this earth making some sort of mark on, and an impression. It's something that I've instilled in my sons, but it's something that in order to do that, you have to constantly live that. So I like to consider myself the best example I can be. And whatever that looks like is what that looks like. I'm also a U.S. track and field masters athlete. So that's for old people, if you don't know what that means. But so I compete for them. I throw implements. So I do those things. I am an over the top, didn't think I was going to be one, extra grandma. So that's me. I also do some mentoring. I'm part of I'm on the board of a veterans group. So I do some volunteering and work there. And then I do some mentoring where requested or where needed. So I also try to help people with patient advocacy to make sure that before they go to an appointment, they are prepared for that appointment, so that it isn't like going to take an exam without knowing what's going to be on the exam. So they are prepared to receive, but they're prepared to work together with evidence-based medicine, but also be an active participant in their care to create a better outcome for the patient. So that is as nutshell as I can get for me. Okay. That's me finished.
Great to meet you.
Great to meet you also.
I'll give my short little spiel. My name's Sydney. I have my bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in environmental education. I love to investigate all topics relating to science, particularly ones relating to how people think, how we interact with each other. And as you may know from if you've watched the stream, I also really love natural disasters, but I won't get into that right now. I also am a poet. I'm working on a few books right now, so hopefully I'll get something out by the end of the year. Yeah, I'm here regularly, so if you enjoy the podcast, I'm here throughout the week. So you'll get to hear me talk a lot. Thank you for coming.
My name is Jason Matthews. I am a behavioral psychologist as well as an author and leadership coach. My first book, my only book that I've written so far is called The Leading Man, a practical guide for men to lead with strength and vision. I am planning on at least two follow-up books, probably more than that. But the next book that I'm working on, creating an outline for right now, is The Nurturing Woman, a practical guide for women to grow with purpose and grace. And that one's going to be really focused on feminine leadership. A lot of people think of leadership as being just a masculine trait, but I think that the qualities of what makes femininity its own leadership style has been lost, and it really needs to be recaptured. It needs to be reimagined and brought back to existence. And I see Carol, her mind is going off like a Pez dispenser, so she must be in agreement. So this is good. But yeah, and then the third book is going to be Winning the Human Condition, which really brings both of them together, showing how feminine and masculine traits are like two wings of a bird. They have to be equally developed for the bird of humanity to be able to fly. And this is what creates the concept of an ever-advancing civilization, knowing that there are masculine and feminine traits that help to design humanity in such a way that we create future leaders that surpass those who came before us, so that we can have a civilization that grows well beyond us. So that's kind of the direction that my life has been taking so far. I've also been working with some retreats, working with some individuals who also do a lot of healing. I'm a master astrologer as well as human design practitioner. So I love incorporating all of that into behavior and showing people how applied astrology can really help them to make better decisions for themselves. That's a lot. So I think that's me. That's good, and I yield the mic. And Mel, you are on mute.
We need a sign that just says mute. So
Yeah, my bad. I did it again.
Yep, that one.
I appreciate everybody for being here this evening. Carol, always good to see you up here. Mike, hopefully after this experience, you'll get a better grasp of kind of what we do up here. I don't have a specific rotation, but what I'm thinking is we'll just start with the ladies first on this one, and then I'll pass it to Mike, then go to Jason. This young man was pledging for a fraternity, and he ended up losing his life over it, over a ritual, over hazing, over a tradition. And a lot of people are highly upset. I don't know how much you guys are familiar with this story. Basically, it was a sequence of getting punched in the chest, and when it was his turn, they hit him so hard that he actually dropped. Uh they got him to the hospital. They couldn't resuscitate him. I'm leaving out portions. There's bits of details within this too, but ultimately his injuries were the cause of the punch itself. Tragedy, real heartbreaking, man. Carol, since you haven't been here in a while, so I want to hear from you first, and then we'll go to Sydney. Did you hear about this? How do you feel about this? Your initial thoughts?
Unmute yourself. Oh my God.
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm not mute. I'm not mute.
Okay, it was me. Obviously. So a couple of things. I did hear about the story. It's one of a few in the last couple of years. But because we're talking about this one, I'll stay on this topic. So I'll speak from two places on this. One, I keep it very low key because of the nature of it. But in college, I did pledge a sorority. And it was the historically Black fraternities and sororities have what is called hazing. There's things that happen. There are things that are expected, and they are mind games to some degree. But for some of the fraternities, it's not just mind games. It is very physical. And it gets to the point where you have a group of individuals that have a lot of testosterone and not a lot of maturity, egging each other on to this level that they don't understand. So it's by the time they got to him, they're amped. Somebody's amped at that point. Um, Coming from healthcare, if you hit someone directly hard enough in their heart, where the heart rests, you can stop the heart. That will stop it. Um, I don't know if that's exactly what happened there, but I do know that from my time, at the time that I was rushing to decide if I wanted to be a part of the sorority, there were some things that they offered, and this is there are some similarities to people who join cults. I wasn't looking to belong because I didn't feel like I belonged because I was a student athlete, so I already had my team. But they offered some things that seemed to align with my values. So it was community service. It was those things. So when we were rushing or looking at these things, it was looking at those values. What you don't know at that time is that to get to that place, to be a part of this particular group, there is a process and there are steps. And there's a point where you have to decide, is this what you want? Can you do these things without this group? Or can you do this with another group? Or are you so indoctrinated at this time that you will do anything to stay with this group? And there are things, for instance, we could not date. Like, you couldn't have a boyfriend. You couldn't be seen with boys or men, whatever. We were kids, but it was college. We couldn't wear certain colors. We had curfews. We had phone calls that we had to do. We had certain places that we had to be, and we all had to be. And this was 1983 or 80, I think it was 84. So we had to do these phone calls, and we're all what we call online, and everyone has to do these phone calls at the same time. Well, that is impossible. But if you don't make the attempt, then you will be punished. So there's things that are done, and so you try to reach this impossible goal to get to this thing or this place with a group of people that you feel you share values with, and as a result, they value you. And like I said, at least for us, our physical stuff was one of the sororities. They did like slap them. I saw it one night. It wasn't the one I was pledging, but they would do other things to cause you physical harm. They would play mental games, and you had to get through all of this to be considered a part of this fraternity or sorority. And there is a point where, like I said, depending upon how you're predisposed, if you are what's considered a legacy, because keep in mind, these fraternities, whether they're the Divine Nine or whether they're not, there are traditions that have gone on for years. And so if you have possibly a parent or a family member, then the expectation is the same for you. Like if they did it, you can do it. And so you will continue at your peril to some degree. Unfortunately, it can happen, and it has happened more. In my case, it I just got to that place where it was I didn't feel like our values were aligned anymore. In the sense that if our values are aligned, then why is this necessary? And so what they do, and it's very much like the military. I'm also a veteran, so it's very much like the military. The way they see it is they want you to work as a unit, and so the goal is to break you down. And you're so broken that all you can do is depend on everyone around you, and everyone does the same thing. The problem is unsupervised, unmanaged, uncontrolled. It is always you always have a risk of someone being harmed of death. And the people that are involved in it have to make decisions. The people that are in charge of those people have to be. Tradition is just because something's done traditionally doesn't mean that's the best way to do it. It just means that's the way it's been done. And unfortunately, a lot of times that's what happens. In my particular case, me and three others of my line sisters, I said, either we have to figure out a way to do this where it is not, where we don't have to be harmed like this, or we don't have to be put in dangerous situations and still be able to cross, is what it's called, or this is not the place for me. And so three of us went to them. There's a lot of bullying. I mean, a lot of bullying, a lot of threats. We had what we called our big sisters come to our practices, because I was a track athlete, and tell us we better not sweat as I'm sweating into my socks. So it's like, and if we do, they would say there's going to be hell to pay. We're going to have a session. So those sessions could be anything, but it was always something painful as well as something mentally exhausting. But I got to the point that I still felt like overall the sorority had the same values, and I wanted to be a part of something bigger. And so I made the decision to continue on, but we made that decision with, if this is where it's going to keep going, and if this is the only way you know how to do this, then I don't need you to still do those things, still use those values. But most people do not, because generally you're freshman and you're sophomore. So you're trying to fit in. You're trying to find that place. This group of people tells you that you fit in. They groom you during the rush part of it. You're groomed. They're your friend. And it was very much that way for us. But then the night that we were going to start this process, somebody basically threw a sheet over my head and threw me into the back of a car. And then we were online at that point. So no more nice. And so I'm not surprised. I'm heartbroken. But if it doesn't get, if these traditions are not stopped, without people feeling like they're not really part of this fraternity or sorority because they didn't do it the way their father did it or their grandfather did it, it's going to continue to happen, because it's very much a hotbed of emotions and tradition and expectations that are almost impossible to meet. So it does break my heart. I can only imagine like how the people that were around this person was affected as well. The person who actually, the people who, because someone actually is supposed to be monitoring that. They're not supposed to actually do things to that level. But because those people went through something very similar, they, for the most part, don't stop it. They feel like if I made it through, then you should be able to make it through. And you are told that you're weak if you can't do anything, and maybe this isn't for you, and you're not going to be like, because I don't wear anything from that sorority, I don't really associate with them. I don't even call out their name. But because once I did cross, I crossed over in spite. I did it in spite of what they were doing. And by the time I did, I didn't want to have anything to do with them. But I was like, but you're not going to break me. And so that was the only reason. But that's not what it's for. So it has gotten lost. It's turned into some things that is unfortunate because it is supposed to teach teamwork and leadership and camaraderie, those things, and build character. And it has gotten away from that. And we're seeing it more than, and I think now it's because it's getting reported, because I know it was happening when I was in school. I was in school. So I know some things have happened and just haven't been like viral because we didn't have that kind of information. So those are my long thoughts on that.
I have never been in a sorority myself. My college actually banned both fraternities and sororities for this reason. They had them symbolically, like they had the Omega Phi Kappa, whatever, like they had those groups, but they were not allowed to get a house together. We didn't have like specific houses for them, and they had banned hazing. They were not allowed to do any activities relating to physical harm, physical tests, drinking. They banned basically all the typical types of hazing behaviors. And I think that I've noticed that's kind of a trend. San Diego State also, or UC San Diego just banned fraternities as well. They just shut down 7 different fraternities just this year because of underage drinking and misconduct and other unruly behavior. There's actually, I think, 3 students that just got arrested like 2 or 3 weeks ago because they set another student on fire as a challenge. So it's definitely ripe for problematic behavior in these types of organizations because, as Carol said, these types of organizations are built around proving yourself. They create these organizations like who can be part of our group, who's strong enough, who's whatever quality they're looking for. But all of these acts are meant to show who's strongest, who's the best, who's the top dog, and that kind of as we were talking about in the previous episode earlier today, these types of organizations really entice people with a sense of belonging. If you join our group, you will be included, you'll have friends, you'll have all of these opportunities. And for young adults, especially ones that are not very settled within themselves, it's very intoxicating. That type of environment is very enticing to individuals that are not comfortable with themselves. And it's quite easy to encourage people that are self-conscious and that are uncomfortable with themselves to think they can get those things from other people. A lot of people who don't have psychological experiences and understand how to change their behavior, how to change their own lives, typically will gravitate towards finding other people to hopefully have them kind of solve the issues for them. And it also can be a source of like, oh, I can just ignore my issues, my insecurities and whatnot. And it kind of gives them a false sense of confidence and feeling proud of themselves. And of course, that type of encouragement can lead them not only to participate in acts that are more likely to put themselves in danger, but they're more likely to participate in activities that put other people in danger as well. Not Maslow, the Stanford prison experiment was a really great example showing how the social atmosphere can make people do things that they wouldn't normally do in other situations, including harming other people. And when you have young minds, they're even more susceptible to that type of not really manipulation, but essentially manipulation. It's messing with their minds and it's making them think in a certain way. So I definitely think this is dangerous. Fun fact, one of the first hazing deaths was actually in 1798. So this is definitely not new. This has been going on for a long time. And we can probably see historical examples that aren't even linked to colleges, all a bunch of different like masculinity tests or femininity tests to prove who's the best. And I just think it's not safe to have in universities with people that are already fairly vulnerable to being enticed to make stupid decisions that will have long lasting consequences. Not to mention, at that age, a lot of people haven't reached the point in their lifetime where they can actually recognize that their actions will have long-standing consequences. Young people have a hard time understanding because their brain doesn't work that way yet, that the actions that they take right now can actually last for years and years beyond that incident. And so that's another reason why students are more likely, young students are more likely to kind of fall for these types of behaviors as something that's normal.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, you want me to go? Okay, I've heard nothing about the hazing. This is my first time hearing about it, except you mentioned it in your email. But I think that I know basically what happened, and I'm 64, and I never made it to like back in the day when you talked about hazing, it was always in a university. That's what it meant. You got hazed by Kappa or whatever, and you got hazed in school. But there was also hazing like in gangs, and there were hazing even in high schools, and I've heard about them. I've done really nothing. I can't say that I've done anything for it. I haven't, and I should have. But but the hazing, I think that what the hazing comes from is the feeling of power. They just got to have some sort of power on you, and then that just gets out of hand. It always gets out of hand whenever you got so much power. Whenever you get people behind you in a cult like thing, you're gonna get a lot of power, and you're gonna hurt people. It just happens. It's human nature, and it's sad, And I've heard of deaths. I've heard of. Now that I think about it, I can remember in high school hearing about hazing. My sister was a couple years older than me, so she was always a little ahead of me, and she would tell me stuff too. So, uh, I don't know what to say much about hazing. I haven't really seen it firsthand, never, except in the streets. In the streets, I've seen some hazing, and that ain't that the hazing that they're most of the hazing at the schools, except when there's a death, ain't nothing like the street. But I'm totally against it. I don't know why it's even necessary, man. If you want to prove yourself to something, make it more simple. But the people that get hurt by the hazing, I don't know. It's either by force, they force, or some option into the hazing, and then all of a sudden it's just too much and things escalate and shit like that. But I can't see it other than a person that wants to start a controlled group of individuals, like not, like a Manson type thing, but just, it's hazing. And then you get in a big fraternity in college, stuff like that. So people are willing to go, like, dig their own grave and jump in it. I don't know how. That's like brainwashing, but your answers are a lot more eloquent than mine, because better speakers. But the hazing, I really don't have much experience, never seen it. I went to a small school, got big university credit, but, that I never heard of that stuff. If I did, I didn't want nothing to do with it. I was too much in the party, really. Just being honest with you. But yeah, that's all I got for that.
Cool. So, as both Sydney and Carol were talking, I was doing some of my own research in the background because I wanted to know about it, and some of the things that I've seen. I'm very much a movie buff, and I know that there are a lot of movies, even as far back as 1974, that cover the idea of fraternities, sororities, hazing, rituals, all that kind of stuff. And one that really stood out was called Fraternity Row, which came out in 1977, which talks about a fraternity in the 50s where this pledge was being initiated into the fraternity. And what they had to do, they had to swallow, I think it was beef liver, swallow it whole. And this one gentleman tried doing so, and he choked to death. And there were plenty of opportunities for, and mind you, this was a movie, but you've got to wonder if this is being depicted in movies, there's got to be something in real life that sparked this idea. And so the fraternity leader said he's faking, would not let anybody help him because he thought he was faking it, and that's why he ended up dying. And you see this all the time. I mean, I pulled up a whole bunch of movies that talk about this. You've got a Black Christmas, National Lampoon's Animal House, Terror Train, Hell Night, House on Sorority Row, Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, the list goes on and on of movies that depict not only fraternities and sororities, but also the hazing that's involved in the assault. And so I started asking myself the question. I asked myself, why does this happen? And Sydney, you actually said something that was really profound, especially regarding the Stanford prison experiment by Dr. Lombardi. And one thing that he showed was the power dynamic that exists between those who are seen in authority and those who aren't. And also the Milgram experiment showed this as well, where there was just one person who had the lab coat, and he was basically telling people to ask the questions and then apply the shock when the answer was wrong. And of course, the shock wasn't real, but that wasn't the point. The point was, are people more compliant to listen to a person in authority? 65% of the time, the answer is yes. And when I was looking at all this, it's like, oh wow, this is an experiment of social conformity. Social conformity of authority versus submission. And the reason is because these kids are brought up in households where, especially the fathers, are saying, I'm the authority, you will listen to me. It's both parents, but really historically we see depictions of fathers that have that kind of aggressiveness, or that kind of iron fist. grow up, and then because they have no outlet to really let this go, they end up, the whole adage, hurt people, where they become people in authority who then decide to victimize others because they want to feel like they have some semblance of control in their life. And what better what better way to wield that than to do so with people who have no way of being able to say no. There's leverage of you want to be in our prestigious community, you have to endure the abuse that I want to inflict on you because I feel that I hate myself enough to actually not want to deal with that, but instead want you to feel that. So we have this concept, we have this play of power dynamics that are absolutely abused. So we don't have a group of people who are looking for belonging. We have a group of people that are being socially conformed, brainwashed, really, to understand the idea that there are the haves and the have-nots. And if you don't have, you have not. And if you have not, you're going to be abused by those who have. And that's just the way of the world. And it's sad. The fact that it doesn't happen more than it does, these kinds of abuses of power where people end up losing their lives or losing something almost as precious, it's the fact that it only happens ever so often, but the fact that it's happened over the course of at least 40 years, if not longer, is rather alarming. If you take into account the 50s, where some movies have been talked about, even Dead Poet Society, probably for the past 75, maybe even 100 years, this has been going on. And it's like, well, no wonder. This kind of thing, you can say that there's no hazing, but I mean, come on. When you have groups of people who believe in this whole social dynamic of the haves and the have-nots, they're going to create these kinds of opportunities. They might not call it hazing. They may call it initiation, or they may call it something else, pledging. But in the end, it's still the exact same thing. It is abuse. It is absolutely abuse of the dynamic between those who are in power and those who aren't. And it leads to unsavory circumstances such as this. Unfortunately, it's not an original tale. And unfortunately, it is something that still happens. And I'm glad it is being investigated under a microscope, because these kinds of things need to stop. I mean, if it takes completely outlawing, like making it illegal to have fraternities and sororities, turning into a hate crime to actually have one, maybe that's what it takes. But yeah, we're at a place right now where it's become quite a problem. That's all I'm going to say about that. I yield the mic.
So
sorry about that.
No, you good, okay, bro.
Ironically,
he's my favorite.
Am I on? Oh, so one of the things, Jason, that you talked about is if it becomes outlawing to not have these things. What often isn't known, at least with the Divine Nine, that if you pledge as a graduate student, you don't go through that hazing. You just have to learn the material. It's like you have to learn the history of that particularly. Well, you have to learn the history of all of those fraternities and sororities, but particularly the one that you are choosing to pledge. And I didn't know that until after I graduated, but I found out years later that there's another avenue. So you don't have to, even if you're not a graduate student, but you have a college degree and you want to become a part of that particular fraternity or sorority, you can do it post-graduation without being hazed. You simply learn what the material that you need to learn. Well, you get, I mean, obviously you have to get someone who's going to sponsor you and say, yes, you think this is a good person. You go through the sponsorship steps for vetting. Then you learn what you need to learn and you start paying dues, and you're wearing the letters just like the people who went through the hazing. Because to your point, Jason, the haves and have-nots, the way that it's displayed, so what people are sometimes willing to put themselves through is at the end of it, I'm now wearing these Greek letters on my chest or my shirt, and you're not. And so it's like I'm above you or whatever because I'm a part of this and you're not. And every day I'm wearing this. And even in the military, and it's done differently because you have to teach people how to work under pressure and work together. But the similarities are uncanny, but the purpose is different. But at the end of your basic training or the end of your officer training, at the very end of that, you now wear this uniform and you've earned the right to wear this uniform. So there's a side in the military that's very similar, but the purpose of it is different. It's life or death. You have to teach these people how to work together in the worst situations and look out for each other. So that's a little bit different. But the pledging is very similar, but not necessary, particularly because once you graduate from college, if you never pledged while you were in school, you can just pledge when you and have the same letters without all of the nonsense. So it's that hanging on to tradition and saying, because I put myself through hell and almost died and some did, I'm better than you. I have what you don't have. And it is very much pushed that way. The bullying part of it is the only way we're going to know you're good enough is you're willing to let us break you down and make you nothing and then form you into what we say we think you should be. And when you become that, then you're good enough. So I don't know that outlawing's a thing, but I do think that it should be. You learn the material, you learn the history. If your values are still aligned, then you go through that process and get vetted a different way. But the other stuff, I do think you're putting in the hands of people that, like Sydney said, their brains aren't formed. They're subject to do things they wouldn't normally do because this crowd is now egging them on or whatever the case may be. It is a recipe for disaster. So I do think that that part should not be allowed. But I think the way it's done as postgraduates is an acceptable way. If you still want to be a part of this particular group and you still share those values or whatever, but the vetting is different and you're not gaslit to do it. So
there are as a veteran of the Army for 10 years, I completely understand where you're coming from. I actually went through both tracks. I went through basic training and I went through OCS. So I get it. I really get it. You're vet as well, Carol? Damn. All right, sister, what's going on? Yeah.
Navy.
You were Navy? Oh, I'm sorry. I was
and
Army.
I did both. No, I looked at Army, but I wanted to be near water. It's like
I got you. That's cool. Yeah. There are fraternities that do have purpose, and they don't have the whole bullshit that comes with it. One of them being Skull and Bones, a very, very prestigious, very secret fraternity that are very selective. It's really more of a birthright kind of thing. It's kind of stupid, but they being in that fraternity also provides access, and there are positives and negatives that come with something like that. Carol, I did not know about the whole idea with as a post grad when you are in a fraternity or sorority. As a post grad, there is no pledging. It's more of just providing dues and the access that you get, the influence that is provided to you from that fraternity or sorority is what you get. I didn't know that. That's actually really good knowledge. So
now that is with the Divine Nine. I'm not sure if it's done that way with the ones that are not the traditionally black ones, but I do know the Divine Nine allows that access. So that because it's supposed to be a community thing that goes until you die,
right.
So if that's something that you decide you want to do after you graduate because you're focused on your grades or whatever, you just didn't want to do all that craziness, you can still do it. So
awesome. I'm done, by the way.
I just want to make sure. Damn, what was I going to say? When I was in school, you wanted to join a band or you wanted to play sports, football, maybe the choirs or something like that. All you had to do was get your parents to sign a permission slip. Maybe um just like some small lighthearted things. Nobody was asking you to eat out the toilet or brush your teeth with somebody else's urine sample or some crazy stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And look, if I ever had went to college, it wouldn't have the experience that I would have wanted out of it. It wouldn't have involved me like having to dehumanize myself to feel a part of something. Like the world outside of college does that enough to people as it is. I'm not. I can understand why people do it, but if you're telling me, yeah, you're gonna have to put shavings of someone's rectum on your pasta or something like that, I'm good. I'm sorry. Like, and
Wrong kind of cheese.
you ain't lying. You not lying. And I listened to one brother. He was saying, look, the whole point of this is when we break you down, it's not to physically hurt you. It's not about that. It's about bringing you into a different fold of yourself, and also on top of that, bringing you into this fraternity, this circle of brotherhood, sisterhood, where we're removing anything that was probably detrimental to your mental growth, and we're making you stronger. It was never intended to humiliate anyone, but as expressive as everyone's been here, this has been going on for years. So my thing is, why was it ever why was it ever normalized in the first place? Why did anyone ever think that it was okay to basically kidnap, tie people up to flagpoles and all this other stuff in order for them to feel like I don't know. That's just crazy to me. And it's sad that somebody had to lose their life over it. Um, what is more disturbing to me is why does it have to take someone losing their life for people to wake up and be like, this this is really kind of like ridiculous if you really think about it. Like we're all adults here. We're over the age of 30 years old plus. Why is this okay? This isn't there's nothing fun about this. There's nothing lighthearted about this. I'm not keying and ha. I don't think anyone's parents, if your children were going through any of this, I don't think any of them would think this was cute, but it's been happening and it continues to happen. And I mean, I don't know. I'm with you, Sydney. I couldn't do it. Like I just don't get it. Um, Mike, I hear what you were saying. I think about hazing. It's not just in college, is on the job, is pretty much everywhere for real, depending on what you're doing. But
Yeah.
but this, how is putting your hands on another human being a form of acceptance? Like me beating the hell out of you means that I find you to be a significant part of our group. So by me doing this, I am saying, hey, you matter to me. Come, you're going to be a leader one day. And I think it was something else. I think Carol, you said, somebody else has said this too. The guys that are performing these hazings, they learned it from someone else because they had to go through it. But everybody's not going to survive it. I got a question. Do you think is it possible to have healthy hazing in general?
Hell no.
The nature of hazing already makes it unhealthy. It's an imbalance of power, so it can't be healthy. Those two things can't go together. The fact that it is an imbalance of power and an exploitation of it already makes it unhealthy.
And human psychology will essentially entice people to act more and more severe. There's also kind of touching on a question that you mentioned a little bit ago, why people would participate in this, even if they knew that it could be dangerous. A huge part of it is the mentality that it's not going to happen to me. A lot of people have the underestimation that bad things won't happen to them, they only happen to other people. And so when people go into hazing, number one, the people that are doing the hazing will assume it's not going to happen to us. We're not going to hurt anybody. We're not going to kill anyone. We're just doing it for fun. It's just like it's harmless. And then the people participating go in thinking, well, it's not going to happen to me. I'm strong enough. I won't have that happen to me. I won't drown. I won't get hurt. I won't whatever. And so this false expectation will essentially encourage people to participate more than they would have, because they're willing to disregard the actual information out there and the possible risks to what they're doing, in favor of this thinking that it's not going to actually affect them. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, despite the danger of this, people are still willing to participate. And then also kind of touching on to what Carol said and Jason, it's inherently dangerous because hazing isn't just the action, it includes the psychology behind it. Because to initiate hazing, there needs to be a certain mentality of power and basically forcing somebody to participate in something to demonstrate whatever quality they think they're demonstrating with the action. And so when you are forcing people to participate in actions for the purpose of showing off, you're far more likely to encounter negative issues, because when it's to show off, when it's to prove something, they're more likely to put themselves at risk and continue through with the challenge, even if they're feeling pain, even if they're already being harmed by that activity. It's that mentality of, oh, I just have to push through, I just have to get through it, and then I'll be fine. And so yeah, as both of them said, I do not think that you can have safe hazing, because hazing is hazing. No matter what you are doing to haze the people, there's still the reasoning behind it and the psychology behind it that is what makes it the most dangerous.
Another thing is the idea of gradual escalation, and this is the process of, regardless of what standards you set. This is why I absolutely agree with both Carol and with Sydney, because no matter what standard you set, if you say, okay, well, we can only have a little bit of hazing, and it has to be under these current circumstances, yeah, you can terrify them as long as they don't feel like they're going to die, and you can you can bring them to the point where it's a good joke, but that's all as far as it goes. Eventually, gradual escalation says that, well, this is all that we did. If we just go a little bit further, it's not going to mean much. And if you continue going 1% time over time over time, eventually you get 100% worse. And so then you've gotten way past where you started from. It's better to have a standard where this is completely unacceptable, where there is no instance where any of this is considered safe, and it needs to be abolished completely. And maybe I was speaking a little bit too far when I said make all fraternities and sororities basically a federal crime. But definitely the pledging that's involved. If it doesn't involve just the ability to meet a certain standard that has nothing to do with emotional or physical abuse or displays that create any kind of tension or stress, then sure. But it cannot go to the point where okay, so you pay $50 a month and you're in. Congratulations! You have to learn this material. You have to take this test, and you have to show that you have a commitment by doing these things. I mean, even schools have that kind of prerequisite with certain subjects, and that is not outside of the realm of acceptability. That's very acceptable. Once you go to the realm of, oh yeah, we're going to tie you to a tree. We're going to put honey on you, and we're just going to we're going to leave you there. Oh, by the way, the bears won't come and eat you, so you'll be fine. Next day, you basically get a carcass or a corpse. Where did Jerry go? Oh no, and then that happens. It's and of course, that's an outlandish example, but you get my point. I'm gonna yield the mic.
Hey, there was a hazing incident where they hung somebody from a tree by their feet, and he died after a couple hours of hanging there, and they had no idea that it was going to cause his death.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. How can you be so stupid to think something like that, to hang someone upside down like that? I mean, that proves that they're not even, well, I don't know if it proves it or not, because there could have been very bad will intent, premeditated, but anybody that did that thought that something wouldn't result in death, even, it's got to have something wrong with them, or they're just trying to gain control of people. And I agree with Creed that the hazing is just, it's almost like a cult, and people have been convicted really from hazing incidents. And I don't know why the hell it still goes on. Honestly, just hearing it from you guys this morning, I haven't even thought of that shit for years,
You raise an important point, Mike, because one thing that the hazing does within any kind of situation is it allows two kinds of people: the stupid and the predatory.
Yeah, right. And the victim's actions too. It does matter.
And also, I noticed a trend with a lot of the hazing incidences. Most of them are not really, obviously not accidental, but they're like, oh, I didn't realize it was, I hit them that hard, or I didn't realize that we left them under too long, or we left them outside in the cold too long. And so a lot of it really seems like negligence too. Where it's just their sheer lack of understanding of the body's limitations. And that's another thing that comes with being young, is they underestimate what their body can, or overestimate what their body can take, or underestimate, whatever. They basically think that their body can take way more than it's able to take. And so it's just another example of why young people are so susceptible to these types of behaviors. Because if you tried to get a 40-year-old to be like, oh, we want you to stand outside in the cold at 1 degree and you have to do so naked and while drinking, they're gonna be like, what?
Are you high?
No, no. Yeah. But if you took an 18-year-old that was trying to make friends with somebody, they might do it because they're like, oh, what's the big deal? It's just 1 degree. I can do that. And so we really need to protect the vulnerable. I think at the very, very least, they need to have adults present when they have these hazing type events. Like if they really, really want to hold events to challenge their people, they should have adults sign off on what they can do. Like it should be more based on like academics or sports or something, like realistic challenges that showcase talent in some ways, but don't actually push the boundaries of human ability. I think if there was some sort of supervision, it could kind of balance the two out where it could still allow them to have that experience without actually putting themselves in grave danger. So I think even if we don't ban fraternities altogether, which is definitely something that could be looked at, as I said, at the very least, have adult supervision that can help the students actually make a proper decision and can step in when things are going too far. And also, if something does actually go wrong, they'll have an adult present to actually do something about it. Because I've also, out of the stories that I was reading, many of them didn't die during the hazing. They died days or weeks after because of the injuries that they sustained during the hazing. And an adult would probably be able to recognize actions that cause harm that would require them to go to the hospital. And so, yeah, I think there definitely needs to be a presence that helps moderate these activities if they are to continue.
I think also, or one of the things, because we're focusing on this topic of this person's fatality or this death, but what also happens a lot also is destruction of property and things like that. I recall it would be our brother fraternity, when you are, and it happens in general, but while you're on what we call line or pledging, your property is not your own. So if your big sister or whatever comes into your dorm or your apartment and you have a sweater or dress that she likes, that is now her sweater. Like she can just take it. In this instance, this person's father was a well-known surgeon. He had a really expensive sports car. He was 19 years old. He did not die, but he was pledging. And one of the big brothers took that car and totaled it. And someone was asking, well, why didn't he stop him? And I said, the dynamic doesn't allow that. And unfortunately, it's because you have people in power that are not mature enough to have power. So they're drunk with this power because they're not emotionally mature enough to handle it, because there's no reason for you to have to take someone's vehicle to prove a point.
And sometimes literally drunk.
Yeah. And I can recall one of my former sister-in-laws, she was going to pledge a different sorority. And I brought her in. I said, if you're going to do this, this is what I'm going to tell you to do. Your car keys, you give them to somebody else. Everything you like that you wear, you take it over to someone else's apartment. If there's anything you don't want them to have access to, you get it out now before you go online, because once you go online, that stuff is not yours anymore. And so they have this authority that they shouldn't have because they don't have the mentality to manage the power that they have. And so it happens with property as well. There's destruction of property. So now there's this parent who had no clue that his son was going to basically just give his keys over to somebody because the person took them, because that's the way it is. They tell you whatever it is you're pledging, you get like the first letter or whatever, but you're not that yet. So they tell you you're nothing. And they treat you like you're nothing. And whatever you own, they say is theirs until you get to that point. And so I do think that hazing, once again, there's no way to soft haze. There's no way to supervise. You can't supervise hazing. It's like, because again, that inch is going to be a mile. And so it has to be more of something that may be along the lines of administrative with some prerequisites. But those prerequisites can't be anything that's going to be a form of group competition, so to speak, because someone's always going to take that to the next level. There's always going to be what we used to call in basketball, someone's going to have the killer instinct. And they're going to want to go there in something as simple as basketball. It's going to get bad. So it just, because it's just the nature of that beast. So I don't think that that is even a possible thing to do. It's either going to be property or life. So those things they just have to be taken off the table.
So one thing that I do know is that universities are incapable of actually managing fraternities and sororities. They cannot take those on because the amount of risk that's involved, the amount of exposure they would open themselves up to, becomes way too high. And this is part of the problem, because they know that these things exist. If they were pledges, or if there were fraternities and sororities that were university sponsored, there'd be so much regulation that's involved. And it would, most people would say, well, this is boring, unless of course there was a reason for it. And then of course there would have to be prerequisites, and there have to be all kinds of administrative tasks and whatnot. It becomes a huge headache. And so in that kind of, the argument against that would be it destroys the peer dynamic, because now it is run by a controlled organization that basically monitors all the activity. And it's a stupid argument, because we get the things that we see, like what happened with like Caleb Wilson, and things that are like that, things that happened with that young gentleman's car, or anything of that nature. It becomes something that is way too dangerous in order for the university to be associated with. They turn a blind eye and say, we don't know what happens. Whatever happens inside the dorms, as long as it doesn't go outside of the dorms, we can't monitor it, because we cannot go into people's private spaces and tell them how to live. And that's part of the problem, is that there are no checks and balances that govern that kind of behavior. And as long as there are no checks and balances, this becomes a huge risk. And so then it brings you back to that point. Well, maybe they should be, maybe they should be either regulated or completely banned for underclassmen, where you cannot. These are way beyond you. You do not have access to any of these things because you are young and you are stupid, and you do not understand the law of unintended consequences, also known as circumstances. So there has to be something. There has to be something done in order to at least prevent the wide scale amount of abuse that happens within these organizations. Curb it some way. You either prevent underclassmen from joining these organizations, have some sort of university oversight, which is going to seriously lock them down, but maybe that's what's needed. Have some kind of mature adult. We can't say adult, because everyone that goes to a university is technically an adult. So mature adult with some kind of experience, either within that university or something else, that helps to move the needle. But that requires investment, because people are using their time, and time requires some kind of exchange, usually in the terms of money. And fraternities, for the most part, and sororities don't make money enough to be able to hire on someone they'll be able to take on that kind of role. So now it becomes, again, a job. And volunteers don't do that kind of thing unless they're really passionate for it. And those are very, very few, far in between. So we're left with this kind of problem. So how do we solve it? And I guess that's not something that can be really addressed in the time that we have. I do have to actually get going, but Carol, it was great meeting you. Mike, it was a pleasure meeting you as well.
Nice meeting you too. Thank you.
Nice meeting you also, and thank you for spending the time with us and sharing your insight.
Absolutely. Sydney, as always, great spending time with you. And
Absolutely.
Mel, I will see you on Thursday.
And Jason, just an idea. We'll just ban early 20s.
I'm in.
The early 20s are now considered children. Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. If you're under the age of 28, you're still a child.
It's funny.
Good later, guys.
All right. Wow, the screen just got bigger. I'm on a little phone. Yeah, if I could say something about that, really, it all comes down to, is hazing legal or illegal? It's illegal, right? If it's a premeditated thought of hurting somebody, no matter what the reason or cause, it's illegal. And the person that gets hurt, if they live, they can take action. But the university also, what the hell? Their insurance companies got to cover something, right? Their insurance companies should be going crazy. You can't allow that shit. We're getting rid of you. We don't want you. Then they got to go to another insurance company. Oh, you had a hazing death. And not to put down anything on a death from hazing. It's totally ridiculous, man, that it still even goes on, man. I was a little surprised, but not surprised, because I haven't heard about this subject really for a while. And it's illegal. It's illegal. And the people that Jason mentioned that will come in on it to get in on it and stop it, man. I know this. If I was at a university and I saw that shit happening, I'd be stopping something. I'd probably be getting hurt too, because there'd be a bunch of them. But you know what? I would lose, because hazing is wrong. It's so wrong. I don't get it. Where are the police? Something, anything. It's just, it's just like different levels of hazing. Yeah, sure. You're at an office building, you get sent to the mail room, and then you work your way up, or something stupid. You're in the Boy Scouts, and you gotta sharpen all these sticks, or whatever, make a campfire. Who knows? That's little shit. But this big shit, that's crazy. That's like a cult to me. That's basically what it is. They're getting away with it, and really, they should be doing time. They should be doing time. I know if it were me, I'd be doing time.
I think it's a little more complex than that, but I feel you. I do. Trust me. I don't see no use for it, honestly. I think it's just for a specific type of person, and a sick little personal pleasure they get out of tormenting people that they deem beneath them, and like it's just a cycle that needs to stop. That's the bottom line to it.
Just to speak to the legality of it, I looked it up, and 44 of 50 states have anti-hazing laws. The only ones that don't: Alaska, Hawaii, New Mexico, Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota. But all the other states have anti-hazing laws. Most of them count them as misdemeanors. A few of them, if there's harm, can count as a felony. But most of them do have it as a crime to haze, especially with the intent or and causation of injuries.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
They also don't do this out in the open. So one of the things you're saying is how do they get away with it? So for one, it's that almost cultish mentality where people probably aren't going to say anything. If no one dies, they're not going to say anything because it is supposed to be secretive, like what's happening. So all of these things, that hazing is not done in public. So for us, it was called a session. It's usually done at some crazy time at night, like people aren't even up. And it's usually somewhere. So you don't generally see the violent part of hazing in public. You might see the humiliation part where they have you do certain things but you don't see the violence. That's not done in public. It's done in secrecy.
It is done in public.
Yeah. So
I've seen more than
I mean, for fraternities and sororities, they don't do that part in public.
I know what you're saying. Not in schools.
Yeah. At school. I mean, hazing in general, anytime someone is feeling that they have some way to a power to initiate or whatever the case may be outside of school, or at least the university fraternities and sororities, then those can be that does happen in public. But on school campuses, that they don't make that obvious. Like it's often done at midnight or 2 a.m. It's something that most people are asleep. It's often away from campus, so no one knows. The people that are a part of it are basically taught not to say anything because you're already in a situation where it's an imbalance of power and you're trying to get to this level and you're already being bullied. So there's all this weird stuff. There's a point where the people that are pledging, the reason why it continues to go on is because the people that are pledging are continuing to allow it. And so until people stop normalizing this and accepting it, then it would continue. So even if we made laws, because these things aren't happening in front of people, this stuff is probably still going to continue unless, like Sydney said and Jason, that they just ban them or ban them for undergraduates. And if you are a master's or a postgraduate student, it's not even associated with the college anymore. It's now associated with that entity. So whatever that fraternity may be, you're becoming a part of it, not on that campus and not as a student. You're doing it as an individual who has a college degree that now wants to become a part of this entity. And so now it becomes different because now you do have board members, you do have lawyers, you do have things that would come into play if someone were to introduce that type of behavior. So it isn't done. So I do think that as undergraduates, I don't care whether it's Divine Nine or anybody else. I just don't think that is something that makes any sense because you aren't going to get the people. There aren't going to be enough people because they haven't done it yet that say, hey, this is madness. Why? It doesn't have to be this way. Why are we putting ourselves through this? Because generally, if you're that person, if you can't get anybody else to agree with you, you'll get kicked out. You'll get dropped. And if you're the person who says it's worth getting dropped, then you just get dropped. But a lot of times people don't want to be dropped. They just want that to not happen. But because they know no one's going to join them or they don't feel like it's going to make a difference, they just put themselves through it. Like in my case, I was prepared to be dropped. I was like, you know what? I didn't know you before I came. I won't know you when I leave. I don't care. I'm not. We need to find a better way to do this. But what we're not going to do is continue in this vein. We're not. You're not coming to any more of my practices. You're not meeting me at student council and trying to embarrass me. We're not doing any of that. That's what we're not doing. So,
it's over.
I was like, we're not doing it. It's like, so, and it probably was helpful because I was at a school that they were going to be more spotlighted. If I had been to maybe like a school in the South, they're much more forgiving of that kind of behavior. They allow it. Whereas California, because we're litigious already, we're not as likely to be okay with that. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just means there's eyes on you. So somebody's watching.
Fun fact, Cornell showed up on the list the most out of all the colleges that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I also wanted to mention too, to add on to what you're saying, sometimes the people that are hazed don't even know they're going to be hazed until they knock on their door and they're surprised by the people in the sorority or fraternity basically like coming into their room, banging on their door in the middle of the night, putting a blindfold on them, taking them to some random location. And so sometimes they don't even get the chance to say no because they're essentially kidnapped and taken to a location and forced to do these things. So as you're saying, it can be very hard to fully ban it because it's not that it's the schools that are doing this, it's the students that are doing this. And I think a lot of these students not only are influenced by their family members and friends that had gone through the process, but also TV. I would not be surprised if a lot of these students got these ideas from watching TV shows and said like, oh, well, we saw this online, we saw this on YouTube, we saw this wherever, and this is a good idea, we should try this. So it's I definitely agree with all of you guys saying that it's not just like it's the schools can't do it all, they can't fix the problem, because a lot of it does lie within the students themselves. So I don't exactly know what the best solution would be for hazing, but it's definitely something that would take a multi-pronged approach. I definitely think education on campus would be a huge component. Having tabling and information out there about hazing, anti-hazing. They actually used to have that at our club fair when I was in school. They had a whole table dedicated to no hazing when I was in college. And I think that could be a component. And then, as we said, having somebody present. I know at my school, every club had to have a teacher serving as a stand-in leader. Like they weren't the ones leading the club activities, but they had to have a teacher as an advisor. So I definitely think that should be another component where every sorority, every fraternity has an advisor. Maybe they could even have a list of like approved activities that the kids can participate in, like related to sports, related to academics or whatever, to have hazing without it actually being hazing. Because fraternities and sororities, they used to be a merit-based program where it was specifically for academics, it was for morality, it was for religion, it was for developing the self. But it very clearly has shifted away from that into being more of a like publicity, belonging, friend type event, social event. And I don't know how they would really be able to enforce this, but definitely doing something about the substance use, because I definitely think that's a complicating factor, where having the alcohol makes people less likely to notice when they are injured or are falling victim to whatever, because if you're drunk, you're less likely to feel pain, you're less likely to feel the cold, you're less likely to feel heat from burns, and so it puts people at risk, more at risk of succumbing to illnesses that they aren't even feeling come on. And as we know, it also affects your ability to make decisions. So both the people that are drinking and being hazed and the people that are hazing are more likely to make decisions that can harm people. So definitely something needs to be done with the substance use as well. And I don't know, that whole thing about stealing people's stuff is crazy to me. I can't believe that's allowed. So I really think they need to remove the bite from these fraternities and sororities, because while it seems like history, based on the historical accounts, it seems like we've had less deaths over time, through the once we got past the 1970s, the hazing deaths definitely decreased. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just because of medical advancements, like they were able to save more of the people that went through these hazing incidences. But the fact that they're still happening, clearly, the fact that deaths are still happening, does require us to put more attention on these issues. We need to protect kids that are vulnerable. We need to um, not encourage this type of behavior, because even if nobody dies, this behavior will carry on into the future. These hazers are going to be future employees. They're going to be future employers. Imagine somebody that's willing to haze being a boss of somebody, how they might treat the people that are working for them. So there's a huge element of like psychology and personality that we really have to discourage that type of behavior and that haphazard, like, I can't really say exactly, because it will be case by case why people are interested in hazing. But there's definitely a superiority complex issue. There's like a sense of narcissism, and then the need for power. So as I said, I think there needs to be a multi-pronged approach to really attack the psychology behind why people join in the first place, to discourage people from participating in actions that do cause harm, to reduce the incidences of people using substances, especially while this is happening, and just to have supervisory type roles within these communities. Even if it was like, I mean, as Jason said, they also have to be mature. But getting somebody in there that can at least monitor the situation and make sure it does not result in the injuries and deaths that we've seen.
I think maybe if they had signs, like they put up a sign in the street, blind child, deaf child living, here. You put up a sign saying hazing will be charged as kidnapping, and that is a federal offense. And then you put down the code and whatever it is, and you put those signs up, not just one or two along the campus. If you're talking about schools, you put them all over the place. You put them in front of buildings that are, they're not right in front, but, they're to the side, and people are going to see them. And then that is definitely a deterrent. Definitely. I don't bet you they don't have those signs, because they ought to have them. And the parents, hopefully they have parents. A lot of times nowadays, kids don't have the parents. Okay. But if they have the parents got to something, but we can't control that. We just can't. But you would think that a good parent would advise their child, what's good and what's bad, and how to behave, behave yourself while you're in school and on the street and in places and classrooms and whatnot. But I think the hazing, they should just pass a damn law and make it really damn public. I don't know what else to do, unless you witness it. But if you witness it and there's 10 guys on one, I'm sorry. I can't help you.
Hey,
But these hate, I love to hate them. Just, I don't know. I think it's just like black and white, man. It's either, there's no gray area. You haze, you're guilty. You're doing the time. We're coming after you. You're immediately expelled if that's for a school thing. On the street, there ain't nothing you can do about it, man. There just ain't nothing you can do about it unless you got the man, or, say in business, the business owner is some sort of narcissistic guy, and he says he puts in a haze for somebody, right? That's wrong too, but that should be punishable by law too if someone gets injured. So I get it. I feel so bad for the person that died and many, many, many other people that have killed from hazing and the results from hazing. Not just the person sometimes killed from hazing, But someone that knows about somebody that killed them, they get killed. That's how far it goes sometimes. So put some signs up, man, you know, like a lot more than traffic signs, you know.
Not to cut your not to cut your wisdom, bro, but I'm about to call it a wrap for the night. But I think everybody pretty much expressed exactly what needed to be said. This could have gone a lot longer, to be honest with you. But I gotta get up early, so you just starting your day out. So I know you ain't worried about it.
My
But
wife had to take my kid to school alone.
my apologies. I ain't even mean to hold you up. I forgot all about that, bro. My apologies for that part.
Oh, me too, because it was my choice to be here. I wanted to be here, man. I wanted to meet you people and try something like this, and I'm glad I did, man. She'll be back.
I appreciate you for pulling in. Carol, it's always good to see you up here. Sydney, appreciate you. Um, to everybody that's watching, thank y'all for coming out. I
Thank
hope
you,
y'all
guys. Nice
Thanks
meeting.
for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sydney, Carol.
Thank you, Mike. It was nice meeting you. Have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, Carol.
You're welcome.
I'll see you in 2 minutes.
Yeah, to see you upstairs. Okay.
Y'all enjoy your evenings.
All right. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.